Hi, so last week I had my appeal hearing for the personal independence payment claim that I made last February. Now, this was on the basis of my already mentioned difficulties with the BPD and fibro, how they were affecting me and how that affects us, if you will, kind of led to a sort of disability, really, for all intents and purposes. Now, the initial result from the Department of Work and Pensions was not very positive. They were, no, we're not giving you anything, pretty much, which wasn't nice. So there is a process for many sort of those kind of benefits where they have what they call a mandatory reconsideration. They don't allow straight to appeal from a decline, or perhaps an award that you weren't happy with. And in that process, they look over information again, potentially add any new information that you may give if you're given the opportunity, as I really technically wasn't. And then they come back with a revised decision, which they upheld the initial sort of lack of award. So really, for the past month, I've been a bit kind of on edge, because when one feels as though they, if you will, would constitute being disabled, and someone else is telling them, no, you don't really have those difficulties, we don't believe you, self-doubt does creep in. You do start to think, well, am I that bad? Really? Am I actually as bad as I think I am? And that's quite normal, especially when some of your issues are regarding your self-image. So it does make it difficult. But by the same token, would a claim have been put in if I didn't think that I deserved it? Well, no. And the fact that people around me were also kind of a mind that it wasn't a pointless gesture, even to the point of encouraging me to continue fighting when I perhaps felt at my least capable of doing so. So it's a good thing that I've now come to this point of having the appeal gone through, waiting a couple of days in the post, because I did take the maximum time really that I could, and I got a letter on Saturday confirming that the tribunal have decided that I am entitled to the standard rate in both elements, because there are two elements. One is care and the other is mobility. Now, care is anything really about looking after yourself. So feeding, washing, bathing, taking medication, managing your condition, all of those things factor in, and communicating with people and what have you. Now, the mobility side isn't as straightforward as, can I walk? Because I can. It hurts sometimes, especially if I do it for too long, but I can do it. So it also looks at, can I make journeys? That's part of mobility. Can I make a journey? And it's a sliding scale of, yes, I can do it entirely, whatever it is, sort of familiar journeys, unfamiliar journeys, aided and unaided, sliding scale of that kind of thing, sort of. So it can on its own sort of give you an award if, say, your physical capability is there, but your perhaps social or cognitive difficulties make it stressful or whatever, because that's part of their criteria. It's not just can you do it, but can you do it reliably, repeatedly, and in a reasonable time frame. And those are the the main criteria, and does it affect you at least half the time? So, you know, I've kind of evidenced, as I say, my difficulties, and they've agreed. I think what does help as well is the fact that, you know, as I mentioned previously, the local council have conceded and given me a pass, which allows me to go beyond Kidsgrove. And that's, I think, sort of helpful in a number of ways in getting this decision. Now, it isn't necessarily the end of the road. They, you know, have made their judgment, but the DWP, the Department for Work and Pensions, now has to obviously do everything their side. That's where it can all fall down, but it's unlikely. The weird process of the upper tier tribunal is that they only really look at it if there's been an error of law. That's the main sort of reason it would go to that, which is where they've applied the law incorrectly or whatever. And in a particularly bizarre situation in a way, the first tier tribunal, I believe, if I understand correctly, has to allow an escalation to the upper tier. So I'm thinking it's set in stone, and I'm taking it as that. But you know, obviously, I'm still aware that I've got to wait for that to come through. I mean, by the time that this is up and online, I may have received further information confirming or whatever, you know, the position. Now, whilst, you know, I'm now out of that, the award is generally, you know, sort of a set time period, and mine is for 3 years from the initial claim, as I say, February of 2014, which means I will need to renew after that 3 years has elapsed. But one of the great helps in getting me through this is advice sources online. Now, many of these are charitable organisations in the sense that they are not funded by anything other than people kind of giving them. You know, they may get sort of government grants and things like that for, you know, for certain things, but generally they're funded by the average person. Particularly of use was a sort of help sheet, if you will, like a rather large actual PDF file from the Advice Guide website, which is an offshoot of the Citizens Advice Bureau. Now, I did actually ask them if they could represent me, but funding issues mean that it was not something that they could offer. So I did have to represent myself, and fortunately my partner could accompany me. Not everyone has that ability, so that's something. But without their help, I don't feel that I would have been as comfortable. I'm not going to say confident, because really I was pretty terrified throughout. Even though it's a comparatively informal affair, it is still part of the court and tribunal service overall, and it does have an air associated with it. But like I say, that free advice, you know, I didn't have to pay for it. That free advice was great, and you know, I'm strongly considering, when I actually receive payment, to actually put a little donation their way, because without that they can't keep offering that service. They can't keep things up to date, you know, and keep helping people, whether in a face-to-face or online capacity. So I'm kind of, you know, very much for giving back to helpful sources. And really, I suppose I'm kind of asking, you know, that if any of you out there can afford to just, it doesn't have to be an ongoing thing, just a one-off donation, but put it towards, you know, charitable services that can help people in difficult situations to get out of those difficult situations, to get through challenges that they're facing. If every single person watching this video chips in even just £1, it's a bit more than they had before. So it's something to consider. Obviously, if you give to other charities and things like that and you can't spare it, or you're just not in a financial position to spare it, that's fine. But maybe sort of if you do get in a position where they help you to perhaps get to a better place, maybe sort of look at giving back. At the very least, leave a positive kind of comment if you can, like I've done. And as always, take care.